The train was never meant to be seen. It moved without lights through the frozen forests of Eastern Europe, its iron wheels screaming softly against the rails as snow swallowed the sound. No markings, no insignia, no flags. Just black steel cutting through the night, like a shadow that refused to exist. Those who glimpsed it briefly, farmers, resistance fighters, even enemy scouts, would later swear the same thing. The train looked alive, as if it were hunting something. Inside the lead engine, Captain Lucas Brandt watched the pressure gauge tremble. The needle danced dangerously close to red. Steam hissed through aging valves, and the smell of oil, coal, and cold metal filled the cramped cabin. Lucas had commanded tanks, convoys, and men, but nothing unnerved him like this machine. The iron train did not forgive mistakes. This mission was never recorded. No orders on paper. No official destination. Just coordinates whispered in a bunker weeks earlier, followed by silence. Whatever the train carried was valuable enough to erase its own existence. And whatever awaited them at the end of the tracks was dangerous enough to justify sending a moving fortress into enemy territory. The train stretched nearly half a mile long. Armored cars bristled with concealed guns. Flatbeds carried crates sealed with wax and steel bands, guarded day and night. Between them rode infantry units hand-picked for loyalty, not experience. None of them had been told what they were protecting. They only knew one thing. If the train stopped, none of them would leave alive. As dawn approached, fog thickened along the rails. Visibility dropped to nothing. Lucas leaned closer to the window, wiping condensation away with a gloved hand. Trees slid past like ghosts. Somewhere out there, partisans were watching. Somewhere ahead, bridges waited, bridges that might not exist anymore. The radio crackled. Static first, then a voice. Calm. Too calm. Scouts report movement near the river crossing. Lucas did not respond immediately. He knew that crossing well. The bridge had been damaged twice already this winter. If it was gone, turning back was impossible. The iron train could not reverse easily. Its weight alone would tear the rails apart. Keep speed, Lucas finally said. No lights. No warning shots. The order traveled down the train like a pulse. Soldiers tightened grips on rifles. Gunners slid shells into breeches. Engineers whispered prayers they didn't remember learning. Every man aboard felt it, the sense that the train was no longer traveling through land, but through fate. A distant explosion shattered the silence. Not close, not yet, but close enough. The train surged forward. Steam roared. Snow blasted sideways as the engine pushed harder. Ahead, the river appeared through the fog, black and slow-moving, with the bridge emerging like a skeleton. Intact. For now. Lucas exhaled. Too early. The first shot came from the treeline, slamming into the armored side of the third car. Sparks flew. Another followed. Then another. The forest erupted with muzzle flashes. Ambush, someone shouted, though everyone already knew. The iron train answered. Hidden turrets unfolded from the sides of the armored cars. Machine guns came alive, stitching fire into the darkness. The sound was deafening, echoing across the frozen river. Trees splintered. Snow turned to smoke. The train did not slow. Lucas watched the bridge rush toward them. He felt the vibration change beneath his boots as the engine hit the steel span. The river passed beneath in a blur. For a moment, he thought they had made it. Then the explosion came from below. The bridge lifted, twisted, screamed. The rear cars swayed violently. Metal shrieked against metal. Lucas was thrown forward as the engine lurched. Somewhere behind him, men were screaming. The train did not fall, but it hung, half on the bridge, half beyond it, groaning under its own impossible weight. Brake failure, the engineer shouted. Of course it failed. The iron train never stopped cleanly. Gunfire intensified. The ambush had been timed perfectly. Partisans rushed from cover, firing at exposed cars, trying to reach the sealed cargo. Lucas grabbed binoculars and scanned the chaos. Then he saw it, figures wearing uniforms that didn't belong to any resistance group he knew. This wasn't a local attack. This was a hunt. Get us moving, Lucas ordered. Now. The engineer shook his head, pale. We need pressure. 30 seconds. 30 seconds might as well have been a lifetime. An armored car near the rear caught fire. Ammunition cooked off inside, sending flames skyward. The train trembled again. If another car derailed, the entire convoy would collapse into the river. Lucas made a decision he had hoped never to make. Release the forward locks. The engineer stared at him. Captain. Do it. Steel clamps disengaged with thunderous cracks. The iron train screamed as its own weight shifted. Slowly, painfully, the engine and forward cars pulled away from the crippled rear. Screams echoed as the connection tore free. The bridge collapsed behind them, taking half the train with it. Silence followed. Heavy. Final. The engine rolled on, dragging fewer cars now, leaving fire, men, and secrets sinking into black water. Lucas lowered his binoculars. His reflection stared back at him from the glass. Older, harder, marked. He had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. Whatever the iron train carried, it was worth sacrificing men, machines, and history itself. And this was only the beginning. The iron train did not slow after leaving the river behind. What remained of it pushed forward through the forest, its wounded body screaming with every mile. Steel groaned where the cars had been torn away. The engine burned coal faster now, as if trying to outrun the ghosts left sinking beneath the collapsed bridge. No one spoke. The silence inside the cab was heavier than the smoke. Captain Lucas Brandt stood with one hand braced against the wall, feeling every vibration of the track through his bones. He knew the cost of what he had done. Half the train gone. Dozens of men lost. And yet the mission continued, as if nothing had happened, as if the iron train demanded sacrifice and accepted nothing less. Behind the engine, soldiers moved among the remaining cars, extinguishing fires, dragging the wounded into makeshift aid stations, sealing doors blown open by shrapnel. Blood froze quickly in the winter air. Medics worked with numb fingers, their breath fogging the lamps as they cut away uniforms and whispered reassurances they weren't sure they believed. One of the guards reached the sealed cargo car and rested his palm against the steel door. It was warm, warmer than it should have been. He pulled his hand back instinctively and said nothing. The radio crackled again, weak and distorted. A voice slipped through the static. Another unit, far behind, calling into emptiness. Lucas shut it off. No one was coming to help them. Whatever protected this train wanted it alone. As daylight broke, the forest thinned. Snow-covered fields stretched outward, broken by abandoned villages and burned-out farms. Smoke rose from chimneys that no longer sheltered families. War had hollowed this land, and the iron train passed through it like a scar that never healed. They reached the maintenance junction just after noon. It wasn't on any public map. Only a handful of engineers even knew it existed. A dead-end spur buried beneath camouflage nets and snow. Lucas ordered the train inside. Engines died one by one. Silence followed, broken only by the ticking of cooling metal. Men collapsed where they stood. Inside the forward command car, Lucas met with his senior officers. Their faces were gray, their eyes hollow. Maps lay spread across the table, corners weighed down by shell casings. "We're compromised," said Lieutenant Adler quietly. "That ambush was coordinated. Someone knew our route." Lucas nodded. He had already reached the same conclusion. This wasn't chance. It wasn't resistance fighters reacting to opportunity. It was intelligence. "The bridge was meant to fail," Adler continued. "They wanted to stop us without destroying the cargo. And now they know we're still moving," another officer added. "They'll try again." Lucas looked at the map, tracing the remaining route with his finger. Mountains ahead. Tunnels, narrow passes. Perfect places to kill a train. "We don't change course," he said. "We change how we move." Outside, engineers swarmed over the engine and remaining cars. Damaged armor plates were welded shut. Gun mounts were repositioned. Ammunition was redistributed. The iron train was being reshaped mid-mission, like a wounded animal learning to fight differently. That night, Lucas walked the length of the train alone. He passed sleeping soldiers wrapped in coats, their rifles beside them. He stepped over coils of cable and crates of supplies salvaged from the wreck. When he reached the sealed cargo car, he stopped. 2 guards stood rigidly at attention. "Anything unusual?" Lucas asked. They exchanged a glance. One hesitated. "The temperature," the guard finally said. "It hasn't dropped." Lucas frowned. "Inside." "Yes, sir." Lucas placed his gloved hand against the steel door. He felt it immediately, a faint vibration, almost like a heartbeat. He pulled his hand away. "What's inside this car?" he asked quietly. The guards shook their heads. Orders were orders. Lucas stared at the door for a long moment, then turned away. Whatever it was, it had already cost too much blood. They moved again before dawn. The train entered the mountains as snow began to fall harder, thick and relentless. Tracks narrowed. Speeds dropped. Every tunnel became a throat that could close around them at any moment. Halfway through the longest tunnel, the lights flickered, then died. Darkness swallowed the train. Shouts echoed. Someone fired a shot by accident. Lucas slammed his fist against the wall. "Hold fire," he shouted. "Stay calm." Emergency lamps flickered to life, dim and uneven. The engine slowed. Then the explosion came from ahead. The tunnel shook violently. Rock dust filled the air. The train screeched to a halt as debris collapsed onto the track ahead. Somewhere in the darkness, metal screamed as something struck the side of the cargo car. They were trapped. Gunfire erupted from both ends of the tunnel. Shadows moved between flickering lights. Enemy soldiers flooded in, their voices sharp and controlled. This wasn't an ambush. This was a recovery operation. Lucas grabbed a rifle and moved forward, barking orders. Soldiers formed firing lines between cars, muzzle flashes lighting the tunnel like lightning in a cave. The noise was deafening, every shot amplified by stone. An explosion rocked the cargo car. The steel door buckled outward. Lucas turned just in time to see it tear open. Inside, the cargo was not crates, not weapons, not gold. It was machinery, tall, cylindrical, braced with cables and copper coils. Symbols etched into its surface. Gauges still moving. Lights still glowing faintly. And it was humming. The sound filled the tunnel, low and deep, vibrating through bone and steel. Enemy soldiers froze. Even Lucas felt it, a pressure in his chest, a sense of something awake. One of the attackers shouted an order, panic creeping into his voice. Too late. The machine pulsed. Lights exploded. Weapons jammed. Radios screamed with feedback and died. The hum rose into a roar that seemed to bend the air itself. Men dropped to their knees, clutching their heads. The tunnel lights shattered one by one, plunging everything into chaos. Then silence. When Lucas regained his footing, the attackers were gone. Some lay unconscious. Others had fled into the darkness, dragging the wounded with them. The machine inside the cargo car stood intact, undamaged, humming softly as if nothing had happened. Lucas stared at it, breathing hard. Now he understood. The iron train wasn't just carrying a secret. It was carrying something the world was not ready to see. And every force that knew about it would hunt them until the tracks ran out. The tunnel smelled of burned metal and stone dust long after the noise faded. Captain Lucas Brandt stood in the half-light, staring at the open cargo car as if it might look back at him. Men moved cautiously around the machine now, weapons lowered, fear replacing adrenaline. No one touched it. No one spoke about what they had seen. The hum was still there, low and steady, like a distant engine running beneath the earth. Lucas ordered the tunnel secured. Scouts vanished into the darkness at both ends, returning minutes later with shaken expressions. The attackers were gone. No explosives remained. No signs of pursuit, for now. They cleared the debris, blocking the tracks by hand. It took hours. Every scrape of metal echoed like thunder. All the while, the machine continued its quiet vibration, unconcerned, patient. When the train finally lurched forward again, daylight felt unreal. They emerged from the mountain into a high valley coated in fresh snow. The world looked untouched here, as if the war had forgotten this place. Pine trees stood silent. Wind carried no sound of artillery. It was a lie Lucas had seen before, calm that existed only because something worse was approaching. Inside the command car, Lucas demanded answers. The guards from the cargo car were brought in first. Pale, shaking. "You've been stationed with it since departure," Lucas said. "You'll tell me everything you know." They exchanged looks again. One of them swallowed. "We were told it was experimental," he said. "A power system, not a weapon." "What kind of power?" Lucas asked. The guard hesitated. "One that doesn't need fuel." Silence settled over the room. Engineers were brought next. Then a scientist, thin, gray-haired, eyes too alert for someone who hadn't slept in days. His name was Dr. Emil Kraus. Kraus didn't deny anything. "It's a field generator," he said calmly. "Not electrical. Not mechanical. Something else." "Something else doesn't exist," Lucas replied. Kraus gave a tired smile. "It does now." He explained in fragments, as if afraid to say too much at once. The machine created interference, disrupting signals, disabling engines, bending magnetic fields. It wasn't designed to kill, but it could paralyze entire regions. Airfields, cities, fleets. "A single unit can shut down an army without firing a shot," Kraus said. "That's why it can't fall into enemy hands." "And why they're hunting us," Lucas said. Yes. The destination was no longer a factory or base. It was a place designed to bury the machine forever if necessary. A facility hidden beneath rock and ice. If they couldn't secure it, they were to destroy it. Kraus's voice dropped. "But it may not be possible." They moved again before nightfall. Word spread among the soldiers, not the truth, but enough of it. The machine had awakened. It had protected them, and it frightened even those who built it. That night, Lucas couldn't sleep. The hum followed him even in his thoughts. He walked the train again, stopping at the cargo car. The door remained open now. Guards stood farther back. The machine's surface reflected his face in warped metal. He reached out, stopping just short of touching it. For a moment, he thought it responded. The hum shifted, almost curious. He stepped back. The attack came at dawn. Not from the ground. Aircraft roared over the valley, low and fast. Bombs fell ahead of the train, tearing apart track and snow alike. The iron train slammed its brakes, skidding sideways. Soldiers scrambled to gun positions, firing into the sky. More planes followed. This time, they weren't trying to capture the machine. They were trying to erase it. Bombs struck near the cargo car. Shock waves rolled through the train. Men were thrown from their feet. The machine's hum deepened, growing louder with every impact. "Decouple the cargo car," someone shouted. Kraus screamed in protest. Lucas ignored him. Before the order could be carried out, the machine pulsed again. The air twisted. Engines above sputtered. One plane spiraled out of control, crashing into the mountainside. Another lost power and vanished behind a ridge. The bombing stopped as suddenly as it had begun. Smoke drifted across the valley. Snow fell again. The iron train still stood. Lucas knew then that the machine was no longer just cargo. It was choosing when to act. They resumed movement under cover of fog, changing speed, changing routes, vanishing from the skies. Radio intercepts confirmed what Lucas already suspected. Every major power now knew about the train. And every one of them wanted what it carried, or wanted it destroyed. The final facility was less than 2 days away. But the iron train would not arrive intact. That night, mutiny almost broke out. A group of soldiers confronted Lucas, fear boiling into anger. They didn't sign up to guard something that bent reality. They didn't trust it. They didn't trust the silence it demanded. Lucas listened. Then he spoke. "You think this war ends when the shooting stops," he said. "It doesn't. It just changes shape. If this machine survives in the wrong hands, the next war won't have trenches or fronts. It will have darkness. Everywhere." They backed down. But doubt remained. And doubt was dangerous. As the train entered the final stretch, snow turning to ice beneath the wheels, Lucas felt the pressure building, not from the enemy, but from the machine itself. Its hum was louder now, more insistent. Something was coming, and the iron train was running out of track. The ice field began just after midnight. The tracks ahead vanished beneath a skin of frozen white, barely visible even to the engineers who knew what to look for. Wind howled across the open land, driving snow sideways, erasing the world beyond a few meters. The iron train pushed on regardless, its engine roaring in protest as steel wheels fought for grip. Captain Lucas Brandt stood in the command car, coat pulled tight, eyes fixed on the map. The final facility lay somewhere beneath this frozen wasteland, an underground complex carved into bedrock, sealed behind layers of ice and secrecy. If they reached it, the machine could be contained. If they didn't, there would be no second chance. The hum from the cargo car was no longer subtle. It thrummed through the floor, through the walls, through the air itself. Instruments flickered. Compasses spun uselessly. Radios refused to stay silent, emitting bursts of static like distant screams. Dr. Kraus watched the readings with growing unease. "It's destabilizing," he muttered. "It was never meant to operate this long, without calibration." "Can you shut it down?" Lucas asked. Kraus shook his head slowly. "I'm no longer sure it would let us." The train slowed as the grade steepened. Snow piled higher against the wheels. Soldiers moved ahead on foot, probing the track with poles, marking weak points. Every step forward felt borrowed. Then the signal lights ahead blinked, once, twice, and died. The ambush came without warning. Explosions tore through the ice to the east, throwing up walls of frozen debris. Enemy armor emerged from the whiteout, dark shapes moving with precision. This wasn't a raid. This was a blockade. Artillery thundered. Shells slammed into the train, ripping armor away, throwing men into the snow. Gun crews returned fire, muzzle flashes briefly illuminating the storm. The iron train shuddered, screaming in metal agony. Lucas grabbed the radio, shouting orders that were swallowed by static. Then the engine failed. Silence crashed down harder than any explosion. The iron train had stopped. Enemy troops advanced, methodical, confident. They knew the train couldn't move. They knew what it carried. Lucas ran for the cargo car. Inside, the machine was glowing now, lines of light pulsing beneath its surface, the hum rising into something almost audible as language. Kraus followed, terror written across his face. "It's reaching critical output," Kraus shouted. "If it discharges fully, what happens?" Lucas demanded. Kraus hesitated. "We don't know." Outside, the first enemy boarding teams reached the train. Gunfire echoed through the cars. Screams followed. Lucas made his decision. He turned to Kraus. "Can you overload it?" Kraus's eyes widened. "That would destroy it." "And everything around it?" Lucas asked. Kraus swallowed. "Yes." Lucas nodded. "Do it." Kraus hesitated only a second before moving to the control panel. His hands shook as he bypassed safeties that had taken years to design. Readings spiked instantly. The hum deepened, vibrating the air so violently that bolts rattled loose from the walls. The machine screamed. Outside, the storm seemed to recoil. Soldiers fell to their knees, clutching their heads. Enemy vehicles died where they stood, engines freezing mid-motion. Radios burst into static and silence. Lucas grabbed the nearest radio and shouted one last order. "Evacuate. Get as far from the train as you can." Some obeyed. Some couldn't. The light from the cargo car spilled into the snow, blinding white, then suddenly black. The discharge was not an explosion. It was a collapse. Sound vanished. Wind stopped. For a heartbeat, the world ceased to exist. Then everything rushed back at once. Lucas awoke buried in snow, ears ringing, vision blurred. He dragged himself upright, coughing, muscles screaming in protest. Around him, the iron train was gone. Not destroyed. Gone. In its place lay a vast depression in the ice, smooth as glass, steaming gently in the cold air. No wreckage. No fire. No bodies. Just silence. Enemy forces were gone too. Their vehicles, their weapons, nothing remained within miles of the site. Dr. Kraus was never found. Days later, rescue teams arrived, guided by weak emergency signals from surviving soldiers. They found Lucas sitting near the edge of the depression, staring into it as if expecting something to rise from within. Official reports listed the iron train as destroyed in a munitions accident. The cargo was described as classified experimental equipment, lost beyond recovery. The truth was buried beneath ice and silence. But sometimes in the years that followed, satellites recorded brief anomalies over that region. Compasses drifted. Radios failed. Aircraft avoided the area without knowing why. And beneath the frozen ground, something still hummed. Years passed, but the ice never truly slept. The depression left behind by the iron train was eventually sealed off, erased from public maps, renamed with a designation so dull no one would question it. A geological instability zone. Flights were rerouted. Expeditions denied. Satellites adjusted their orbits by fractions of a degree, quietly avoiding a patch of frozen nothing. Captain Lucas Brandt disappeared from official history. After the incident, he was debriefed for weeks in a concrete facility with no windows. The questions never stopped. What had the machine done? Where had the train gone? Could it happen again? Lucas answered honestly. I don't think it exploded, he said, again and again. I think it left. They released him with a new name, a small pension, and a warning disguised as kindness. He settled in a coastal town far from ice and railways, where fog rolled in every morning and ships passed without stopping. He tried to live a normal life. Some nights, he almost succeeded, but the hum followed him. Not as sound, never as sound, but as sensation. A pressure behind the eyes. A vibration in the bones. On quiet nights, when the sea was still, he felt it most clearly, as if something far away was listening. Others felt it too. A weather satellite failed over the Arctic 7 years later, its final transmission corrupted by patterns no algorithm could decode. A research submarine reported impossible magnetic fluctuations beneath the ice shelf before losing contact for 12 minutes. When it resurfaced, the crew swore they had seen a shadow moving below them. Long, angular, metallic. Like a train. The rumors spread slowly, never loud enough to attract official attention. Sailors talked. Scientists whispered. Indigenous communities, who had avoided that region long before maps existed, nodded grimly and said the old stories had returned. They spoke of a thing that traveled beneath the world, bound to iron and fire, neither alive nor dead. A guardian, or a warning. Lucas tried not to listen. Then, one winter evening, a letter arrived with no return address. Inside was a single photograph, black and white, grainy, taken from high altitude. It showed the ice depression, but it was no longer empty. A faint line cut across its center, impossibly straight, impossibly dark. As if something had passed through recently just beneath the surface. Written on the back, in handwriting Lucas recognized instantly, were 4 words. It was never contained. That night, Lucas dreamed of the train for the first time in years. He stood in the command car, instruments glowing softly, untouched by battle. Outside the windows, there was no snow, no sky, just darkness, stretching in all directions. The tracks ahead unfolded endlessly, forming themselves as the train advanced. In the cargo car, the machine pulsed calmly, no longer unstable. It felt complete, as if it had found where it belonged. When Lucas woke, the hum was gone. Across the world, subtle changes followed. Power grids experienced brief, synchronized fluctuations. Deep Earth sensors recorded vibrations that did not match earthquakes or tectonic movement. Always linear, always moving. Governments noticed, of course. They always did. Task forces were formed. Budgets allocated. Old files reopened, their red stamps faded but still binding. But no one could find the train, because it no longer ran on rails laid by human hands. The iron train had become something else, a traveler between layers of the world, slipping through forgotten corridors carved by physics no one fully understood. It moved when balance was threatened, when weapons pushed too far, when the noise of war grew too loud. It did not choose sides. It chose moments. The last confirmed sighting came from a civilian source. A freight conductor in Eastern Europe reported seeing a train cross an abandoned junction at dawn. No signal, no sound, no heat signature. Just a long, dark shape moving smoothly through the mist. The tracks beneath it were rusted, broken, unusable. Yet the train passed anyway. By the time authorities arrived, there was nothing there. Only frost on the ground, laid out in perfect parallel lines, stretching into the distance before fading into nothing. The report was dismissed. Lucas read about it in a small newspaper weeks later. He folded the page carefully, placed it in a drawer, and closed it. He did not need proof anymore. Some machines are built to fight wars. Others are built to end them. And a few, very few, outgrow the hands that made them. Somewhere beneath the ice, beyond maps and memory, the iron train still runs. Not as a weapon, but as a reminder that some stories do not end. They wait.